With YouTube attacking alternative media, please consider supporting the channel via Patreon for just $1 per month. Link below. YouTube is having a hell of a 2018. Now, if you caught the first part of my live stream, I did talk a little bit about a weird theory that I had about possible Russian interference and influence on YouTube during the 2016 presidential election. And that is an interesting statement to make, and it's not one that I have any evidence for, but when I come across a story like this, I find it to be interesting that YouTube announces plan to combat propaganda. Propaganda on YouTube is freaking everywhere. I mean, if we're being realistic, and I mean truly realistic here, propaganda is everywhere in your home. You can't even leave your home without seeing 3 pieces of propaganda. You can't. So it's like it's everywhere, you know, and we all acknowledge it that it's there, but we don't always quite maybe acknowledge everything is what it is. Some stuff is very innocuous and some stuff is harder to call out than others. So this is what YouTube is up to. Saying here that YouTube announced Friday that they will start flagging videos published by organizations that receive government funding. Viewers will be able to see the labels on videos from government-funded outlets above the video's title on each page. And I'm actually okay with that. I am. I do think that they need to have a serious set guideline for what is considered state-sponsored. And I think they need to have like a tiered level of that, like what is 100% state sponsored, what is like partially sponsored, what is like, you know, maybe a little bit state sponsored, but ultimately viewer sponsored. I do feel like there should be tiers that would then, instead of having just like one specific banner for it, because that could be confusing, because not everything is like, not one thing is like the other, right? So it says that news is an important and growing vertical for us, so we want to be sure to get it right, helping to grow news and support news publishers on YouTube in a responsible way. This is coming from YouTube News Senior Product Manager Jeff Samick. Well, Jeff, I appreciate your thoughts on that one. As a person who, I think you could say probably for lack of a better term, is alternative media. It is a term I think best applies to what I do. Also being a commentator. You know, people have come to me and said that I am a news source that they like, but I am not state sponsored. I am mostly fan funded because my fans are awesome. And you guys suck when it comes to ads, man. Damn, get your shit fixed, Jeff. Anyway, I digress. Saying this notice on publishers receiving public or government funding, though still in its early stages, not only carries forward our work with this area through 2017, but represents one of the many more steps we will take throughout 2018 to improve how we deliver news content on YouTube. Now, this move comes after online tech companies such as Facebook and Twitter received backlash on Capitol Hill for their handling of Russian propaganda in the 2016 presidential election. Now, as I said at the beginning, I had a theory that it's possible that Russia interfered. To quickly recap that, it's not hard to manipulate YouTube and the algorithm if you have a manpower. You don't really have to spend any money. Facebook, you got to spend money for ads or for targeted ads or for pushing posts through fan pages, so on and so forth. And Twitter, you can do through sponsored content or just knowing the right times to get on there to target stuff. And you can. With YouTube is totally different. If you play the algorithm game correctly, and believe me, there are like tons of resources on YouTube for how to game the algorithm in a way that YouTube wants you to. If you play YouTube's game, you can actually go pretty far. And if Russia was involved in this in any way, this feels to me like YouTube is attempting to kind of like bypass the accusations that could be and probably should be levied at them, and saying like, what are you talking about? We acknowledge that this is state funded. We know this is propaganda. We did nothing wrong. YouTube didn't do nothing. YouTube is a good boy. No one believes that at this point. Social media giants have been criticized by lawmakers for not revealing the extent of Russian activity on their platform meant to influence the election. Despite YouTube's efforts to combat the negative use of state media, U.S. broadcaster PBS has lashed out at the move, saying labeling PBS as a publicly funded broadcaster is both vague and misleading, a PBS spokesman said in a statement to the Washington Post. Saying here that PBS and its member stations receive a small percentage of funding from the federal government. The majority of funding comes from private donations. More importantly, PBS is an independent, private, not-for-profit corporation, not a state broadcaster. YouTube's proposed labeling could wrongly imply that the government has influence over PBS content, which is perhaps prohibited by statute. If YouTube's intent is to create clarity and better understanding, this is a step in the wrong direction. And I guess maybe when it comes to I guess you could say when it comes to PBS, they have a point. if it only gets a small portion of its funding from the government, does it deserve the label of this is either fully or partially sponsored or funded by the government? I mean, the thing is, objectively, it's a true statement, right? But subjectively, it's, not all it's cracked up to be. And again, looking at something like, let's say, for example, RT. So Russia Today. Russia Today is 100% state sponsored. So having that and the thing is, it's known that it's 100% state sponsored. So having a tiered system, right, would be something that would be beneficial to YouTube accomplishing its goal for trying to combat this type of, you could say, propaganda or influence on the platform. And the thing is, though, is YouTube, and I love this, they're not acknowledging where they've made mistakes. And this is one of those things that's absolutely going to keep them from acknowledging that they've made mistakes. Saying here, YouTube announces to plan to combat propaganda. All right. Yeah. Okay, cool. All well and good. You want to combat propaganda. And part of that propaganda, by the way, is not just like state-sponsored stuff. They're also trying to crack down on a lot of alternative news sources and kind of commentary stuff. And this has a lot to do with the Las Vegas shooting, where there was a video that talked about a potential second shooter that went up the night of the shooting, when a lot of people were scrambling to cover it and a lot of people were scrambling even more to get information. And that video, using the algorithm having been played correctly, shot up to 2 million views, which was then treated as an objective truth because so many people saw it. And when that happened, even the guy who made that video was like, the video probably should not have done this much. I probably should not have had that crap, right? Ultimately, there's that. And that's something they're fighting back on. So what they're doing now is, I don't know, I think, while I see where they're coming from, and I think they definitely need to revise how they do it, because it's not hard to tell what is fully sponsored, what's partially sponsored, so on and so forth. They need to have that available. But at the same time, I understand the concern, because if they start mislabeling state-sponsored news, then that puts a bit of a shadow, a propaganda shadow on the organizations that aren't. And if they're already making their way to attack the big guys, then what are they going to do for the little guys down the road when they've kind of run out of these targets and they're trying to weed their way out? Because as I talked about a couple of days ago, YouTube is also going to be giving, I guess you could say, preferential treatment to broadcasters that are basically verified as being factual. So your MSNBC, your Fox, your CBS, your NBC News, those outlets are going to be treated as more verified and more truthful than the people like me, who ultimately speak, I guess you could say, truth to power would be a good way to describe it, where we kind of call out the media on their BS. It does feel, ultimately with stuff like this, it does feel to an extent that our days on this platform are numbered. And that saddens me, because I really love what I do. I love being able to do this every day. I love that this is my career. I love that I was able to, have a stream with a couple hundred people watching and record as I talk about what's going on. I like that. I love it. I love it. I love what I do. And it feels crappy that like we're kind of being lumped in to this type of negative approach from a company that ultimately doesn't care about the news, right? They don't care about the news. What they care about is just maintaining their image, maintaining some kind of sense of control of it all, some kind of idea that Susan Wojcicki and the powers that be know what the hell is going on, that they've got it all locked down. They ultimately don't. They truly, truly don't. And as a result of that, we're all going to pay this price. And it's just, the more I read about it, the more kind of depressing it gets, and I try not to let it impact me, but it does. All I can say is, I hope it gets situated. I hope it gets sorted out, and I hope we don't all get screwed, but, it kind of feels like the walls are closing in, and it's going to be trickle down, so let's see. And this, I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm not trying to be, oh, woe is me type stuff, but I am kind of curious if I'll be able to survive 2018. that will be the true test, I think. So wish me luck.